Well, hey everybody, it is Romania Black, and we are on episode 6 of Life Lessons with Uramichi Oniisan, and oh my god. I am loving this show! It's so freaking good! Oh my god, it's hilarious, but it's also surprisingly existential and really, like, there are some parts of this series that are really touching close to home. And I'm really excited to get into these characters, to see what all is going to happen with them, and to learn more about them. We're slowly starting to kind of like deconstruct each of them, and there's shipping and there's comedy, and it's a great time. It's a great time. So, with that being said, I want to look here to a couple comments I have moving forward before we start the episode. Seppi pointed this out, and I thought it was important to mention because people have been like, oh, you ship Ikateru and Uramichi, oh, that's cool. You ship Usahara and Uramichi, that's cool. It's like everybody's trying to like subtly throw their ship onto the poker table and being like, do you want to take a bet on these? I would bet on all of them because I like all of them. But I thought this was really interesting. Seppi pointed out that Usahara, his first name, Toby Kichi, the Kichi in it means luck or lucky, which I thought was really interesting because he plays a rabbit on the show, like a lucky rabbit's foot, right? But the irony is, he's not lucky at all. All these bad things happen to him. So it's like, yeah, I thought that was a nice play on. Of course, you have Tadano, who's the ordinary singer. You have Usahara, who's the lucky rabbit, who's not lucky at all, right? I thought that was interesting. Alexander Q6927 posited if Uramichi and Usahara actually like their job, but it's just emotionally draining. And I thought that was an interesting thing they pointed out. This was way back in episode 2. But they noted that, it's like, why don't they go get another job? Clearly, this is not a job that's catering to their major or their field of choice. So why don't they leave? And I really liked Alexandra's comment saying, sometimes we get into jobs and they may not be necessarily the jobs that we want or like, but there are aspects of them that we do enjoy or that are beneficial. And so they kind of keep us there. And I thought that was really interesting and important to bring out. So cool. Their comments on episode 2, if you want to go read more on that. And then Truck finally pointed out that I questioned why the Germinator, which is Ikateru's character, the Germinator, and then we have Bacterian. I wondered why Germinator was spelled with a J instead of a G for germ, but Truck says that's a translation thing, that the reason why is that originally in Japan, Germinator's name is Jokaindo, which means disinfectant. So that's why they keep the J from Jokaindo in Germinator. And Bacterion is taken from Bikinder, which means germs. So the translation is the reason why things are the way that they are. And I have a feeling as we go through these episodes in the comments, several of you will have like different cultural things to point out that I might miss from a US perspective watching this series. So I think that that's really, really cool. But I'm appreciative of y'all and your comments. They've been a lot of fun. And the shipping is just so much fun in this series. But in any case, I'm really excited to see what we get moving into episode 6. This series has 13 episodes, and I know that the manga is ongoing, so I feel like after this episode we'll be at the halfway point of the season, which is wild to me. So wild. But what can we do? So, in any case, we're going to start episode 6 of Uramichi Oniisan, and we're going to do that here in 3, 2, 1, and let's go. That episode went by so quickly. Man, that was definitely probably of all the episodes I've watched so far, it was the most random, I think, out of all of them, but it was still really, really good. I definitely want to talk about it. So we start out with Uramichi seeing a little bit of his life outside of the apartment, mainly at the gym. I definitely can see now why Tadano didn't want to go to the gym, because when she said all access, it's like one of those 24-hour gyms, and that's fine. I don't have anything. I used to go, there was a 24-hour gym in the town near me, And I went there a little bit, but it was mainly, I have found from my experience, and this is I'm very much stereotyping because it's only from my one experience at that gym. I noticed that a lot of the people that just frequented randomly on their own time were men. But if a woman went there, I noticed it was mainly for classes. Like if I did like a core class that was there, and they also had like a bicycling class, and they had a kickboxing class. They had different classes there, and from my experience, they were all mostly women. And then the random people around the gym were mostly men. So I don't know if that says something about like how we organize our time and everything, but all the guys here that we see with Uramichi they're all men. So Uramichi just sitting there doing what he is doing is not easy. Just sitting there doing the pull-ups from his legs. That is not easy at all. And it makes sense with him being a gymnast. Also, the fact that they even have that equipment there. It's a pretty nice gym. But yeah, I also like how the older man is just like, they're all just kind of like amazed at how buff Uramichi is as they're like staring. They kind of don't have like the buff body and physique that Uramichi does. I can so relate, though. I can so relate to Uramichi-san because I have so many moments where I will forget somebody's name or an actor or that one thing, and you're like, I just can't remember the name of it, and my brain's having a bleep. I don't know what to do. And that experience where you go all day and then you finally get it and you're like, yes! And so of course, when he has like the moment of revelation and he finally gets it, the macaron, it's like that one moment where he has this sensation of joy that he figured it out, and the kids take it as creepy, and you're like, no, what are y'all doing? But we'll admit, I think first of all, Uramichi's refrigerator with the beer and the pickled mackerel, Haru from Free would get along with him quite nicely. But that just motion where he just like closes the refrigerator with his leg, that was hilarious. And then him watching the movie that Haru got for him, the man eating a salmon versus bunny on a moped. He still does the arm exercises even when he's at home. So I talked about this a little bit in the reaction. I don't know. Clearly, he cares about his physique. Clearly, that gives him some sense of accomplishment, and he feels like he's in control of that for him. But even him doing the workouts at home, it is a bit body obsessive. So I don't know if Uramichi deals with like any form of body dysmorphia, but if he potentially feels as if he has to work out to feel satisfied or he has to stay in shape or he'll be a failure. I don't know. I'm still so curious about his gymnast background, and if we're going to get more on that. I feel like we are before the season's over, but if we're going to get more on that, maybe he got injured and then he got out of shape and it was like a Yuri on Ice situation where he got out of shape and he couldn't perform. Maybe it's something like that. I don't know. I hope we find out. But I will say the macarons in his dream where it's that chicken coming out of it, that is absolutely terrifying. Like his face, again, there are moments, and I think it's because Kamiya voices him, there are moments where Levi's personality almost comes shining through, but I feel like the little bird man coming out of the macarons is absolutely terrifying. And then he wakes up. He even has the gym equipment for his hand by his bed. So again, I wonder if he just has this obsessive need to exercise because that's like the one control he has in his life. I don't know. It could be. So let's get past this OP. There's a lot of characters we haven't met yet. Like, if I'm going through the OP and looking, we met the one girl this episode, the camera girl. She was in the sauna. We haven't met the long-haired man with the mask. We haven't met him at all. Or the dark-haired man with kind of like reddish-purple hair. We haven't met the family that is there. We also haven't met, like, who's the other person? We haven't met, like, this guy with pink hair. There's a lot of characters we haven't met yet, so I'm curious. But yeah, and then we have the one girl, she like is dressed up too with them, and the guy that normally does the cue cards, he has like a ladybug suit on there, and she has like a fly swatter. Interesting. And then yeah, there are several characters that we just haven't fully met yet, so I'm curious about them. Interesting. Anyway, so Uramichi and them, you know what? They have a pretty good interaction today with the kids, but the shirt song, the arm through the neck hole shirt song, it's like it hides itself as like this cutesy tune, but the lyrics are actually pretty downtrodden. Also, the fact that they have that stupid bird with the baguette on the shirts. I feel for Uramichi. I feel for him. And that he has to wear the boxers that have the bear and the bunny on them. And they're like, I put both my feet in the same pants. My life's such a mess. I can't even get dressed. And it's like, la, 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 la. And then he goes away. Oh my God. So then they move on to the next song, which is when I put my hand up, a taxi stopped. Ridiculous. And the kids are like, yeah. So yeah, I do think, okay, at this point, I am hardcore shipping the two camps. I've been jumping ship this entire series, but right now, Kumao and Ikateru, totally shipping. I get it now. I get it. I think I've cracked the code and I figured out the ship. And then Uramichi and Usahara, I figure it out. I get that ship now too. Because Usahara, he is concerned for Uramichi. He is concerned about him and questions him. He's just kind of an idiot. And so Uramichi just doesn't have like any use for him. And then Kumao, what gets me is that Kumao is very considerate of Ikateru, and he just completely buys into Ikateru's like goofy aloofness, which we'll talk about once we get to the bus stop. But so we get the advice corner. He's like, from my own one-sided perspective. Just him saying it without even like blinking. But then like the one kid, he says like, I'm really enjoying my time, so I feel bad for you, Uramichi. And he's like, Uramichi's like, well, why would you feel bad for me? It's fine. And then they're like, what concerns do you have? And he's like, well, lately I've been forgetting the names of things. And then this one girl, she tries to stand up and help. And she's like, well, my mom's 26, but sometimes she can't remember people's names. And we saw this one guy at the grocery store who was buying some pickled mackerels and burdock root and a lot of alcohol. And Usahara knows it's him because he likes pickled mackerel. And he's like, oh my God, it is him. So the fact that Usahara knows what Uramichi's favorite food is, I think is telling. And Uramichi's like, let's not focus on that. He's like, it was me. Oh my God. And then Usahara, who is playing the puppet of the bird with the baguette, is also like, yeah, it was him probably. I'm like, oh my God. And the moment that Uramichi looks back over to him being like, did you say something? No, I didn't say anything. Their dynamic is just, I love it. I do love, like Truck had mentioned way back at like episode 3, they were like, yeah, the Kohai Senpai relationship. I see it now. I've been enlightened. I've seen the light. Uramichi definitely, I feel like Uramichi is maybe too harsh for Ikateru, especially after this episode. Ikateru is the most innocent of beings. He's honestly too good for this series. He's too pure. He's too kind. He's too pure. And I feel like Uramichi is maybe too jaded for Ikateru. It'd be too jaded for him. But Usahara, they're a match made. They both are kind of jaded, so it works out really good. And then he sees the macaron and has that moment, and he's like, macaron. And it's like the most emotion and sincerity we've ever seen him explain, like utter out loud. And the kids are all freaked out by it. They're like, ooh. They're like, creepy. I guess it's considered creepy because he's 31 and they think it's creepy for him to like point at a little girl's shirt and say that's his favorite food. Makes sense. I get it. So then he's like, he's so calm today and he's having such a great day because he knows it's Friday and he has the weekend off. And he's like, that's right, kids. Hang on me. Be annoying. I don't care. I have 2 days where I won't have to deal with any of you. And he's so happy. And then Usahara's like, am I going to have to be the one to tell him? And instantly, mood is shattered. Instantly. That part was so hilarious. He's so excited. And he's like, this is bad. And then he finds out about the company party. And he's just instantly like, what? On my weekend off? What? And he's like, yeah, if you don't go, they're going to treat it as you skipping work. And then the director shows up. And they're like, how exciting, a company trip. And I get Uramichi where he's like, I wasn't told about this. And the director's like, well, you've got to show up at 8 a.m. for the bus or you have to pay for your own transportation. Oh my God. And Usahara's like, well, did you have plans? And he's like, I sure as hell did. I was going to sleep. So then they get on the bus, right? And so here's the thing. Usahara, he's an attractive character. He's got like the blonde hair with like the roots. His eyes are like this gray color. He's really attractive. He just is kind of like he reminds me of Tadano, how she describes her boyfriend. He's just kind of like a coward and a little bit, you know, he means well, but he's got a lot of flaws, right? He's not a loser, but he's not exactly like an upstanding guy, right? So then he's like, well, you arrived here early, Uramichi. And Uramichi almost seems like, he seems almost disappointed that Usahara didn't remember this fact about him. He's like, well, I have a habit of arriving 10 minutes early, so... He's on, the way he said it was almost kind of like, wow, I can't believe that you've been my Kohei and that you've been looking up to me, but you didn't even know that. Like, he very much had that air when he said it, like, I can't help but be early. So then, Tadano and Ikateru show up, and they're like, you guys really pack light for this kind of event. And whenever Usahara said it's because we're used to training camps, I instantly was like, yes, I help coach for a speech team, and I used to do competitive speech as well. And even though it's not like an athletic sport, it's still a competitive sport. So we would still go on trips and competitions, and they would be like weekend trips, but you only had so much room in your van, and our coach was like, pack light. You don't need to bring the kitchen sink. You don't need to bring all this stuff. Bring exactly what you need. You gotta wear a suit, so bring that. Don't worry about all this other junk. Just bring your essentials. And so from being on that team, it's really taught me how to pack, and it's something I've carried on into adulthood. So when Usahara says, well, it's because we're all used to training camps, that makes sense. It's like, yes, you get used to doing certain events and packing a certain way, so it all makes sense. I love it. And so then Ikateru says, check out my t-shirt. And it's the ugliest thing in the world. It says Inu. It looks like something from Mob Psycho. And it's just this weird centaur-looking dog. And he's like, look, it's cute. And I love that the moment Uramichi was like, no, it's not. I was like, well, that ship is maybe sinking. He's like, it's not. And he's like so appalled by the fashion, so appalled. Uramichi's like, it's not cute. It's so not cute that I stumbled over the words. I'm in shock. Like, yeah, he's just like, that's awful. And Ikateru's like, oh, there's this site where I buy stuff like food and toys for Sayuri-san. And he's like, you got 2 shirts for the price of 1. If you buy 2 shirts on this site, you get this pin case. And I love that he's trying to say pin case, and everybody's like, what is that? And he's like, oh, it's a pin case. And I'm like, what is that? And he's like, it's a pin case. And I'm like, what is that? And he goes, it's a pin case. But he doesn't answer what the thing is, right? And so then Kamau shows up. And he's like, I'm sorry, I'm late. And he's like, I came running here, and now I feel hot. He never looks flustered at all. He's just like, God, I ran so far, and now I'm here. It's great. He's wearing the extra shirt that Ikateru gave him. And he's wearing it in front. It's almost like he's showing off that him and Ikateru are together. It's almost like he's saying, Ikateru's mine, back off. It's like a territorial thing where I'm like, what? Come out, what is this? He's like, is that thing popular around here or something? He's like, Ikateru gave this to me. I was like, you weaseled your way into getting the boyfriend shirt. I was like, no. It's like, Kamau wants to make this happen so hard. So hard. But they end up in the bus getting separated. And so the one girl is with Tadano. And then we see poor Usa. We see the one guy who does the signs. He's with Kuma. And so this part here was so, like, maybe one of the most underrated lines of the episode. The guy that does the cue cards, he's like, is there any movie you would recommend, Kuma-san? And he says, oh, Man-Eating Salmon versus Bunny on a Moped. And he's like, oh, is it good? And he says, no, not at all. It's so dry. Where he's like, oh, is it a funny series? No. And then meanwhile, Uramichi would just rather be anywhere else. Instead, he's stuck like with Ikateru and the one director saying like what he's going to do. And he's like, I'm counting on you two. I'm going to give you more work. And then the director's like, men flourish after 30. And like, Uramichi would rather be at home sleeping, but now he's stuck between the director and the cinematographer and Ikateru, who's not defending him. Meanwhile, the bowl cut choreographer, the one storyline that kind of irks me a little bit is the bowl cut choreographer is like clearly hitting on Usahara, and it's clearly not consensual. Like, Usahara gets stuck with them and tolerates them, but Usahara does not want to be with the bowl cut person. And the fact the bowl cut person kind of like forces them upon Usahara and like kisses him, I'm like, Usahara doesn't want to be with you. So like, if it's not consensual, no, back off. So I feel for Usahara. I feel sad that he's not standing up for himself, and the bowl cut guy like literally runs off with him every single time. It's like, oh, I do feel bad for that. I feel bad for him in that scenario. So then they show up at the hot springs, and the three of them are just miserable. Poor Usahara has been kissed. Ikateru and Uramichi are not happy to be there. And Kumao's like, maybe we should do like the girls and just pretend we're having fun. Kuma, like, definitely rolls with the flow throughout this series. He doesn't let anything really bother him. And he clearly has a crush on Ikateru. Like, it is hardcore. So he's like, let's at least pretend to have fun. So they get in this group, and then we see, like, the end card where it's like, you can discover wonderful items that are new to you on Inu Market. I'm like, oh no, sweetheart. Like, why are you buying all this spam stuff? So then we find out a little bit more about Ikateru, and probably maybe why he finds, like, the dick jokes so funny and everything. He doesn't have a lot of friends, and he grew up in a really strict household and was kind of sheltered. So he doesn't have a lot of experience hanging out with other people, which is why he was like the pillow fight and the scary stories and all that sounded appealing to him, because he never really had a childhood. And they're like, oh, okay. And so they're like, well, we go to the hot springs and stuff like that. And it's so sad. He's like a puppy. He gets so upset when they don't originally want to do it. And they're like, oh, no, we can do it. It's fine. And so he's like, okay. And so they do the yukata and gives it to him. And then Usahara tries to have this really, like, fun, genuine moment with him where he's like, I can teach you all kinds of school stuff. And Ikateru wasn't listening to any of it. And it's just, God, it's funny. So yeah, so the girls go to the hot spring, and Tadano's frustrated with her boyfriend because she's like, and her boyfriend does sound like a loser. He really does. Like, she's like, when I was leaving for my trip, all he said was, what about my meals? Like, she cooks for him. And I was like, dude. And I'm the same way as her. I'd be like, if some guy said that, I'd been like, oh, you're a grown adult. You can feed yourself for 2 days. Like, that's always something. My mother grew up in the generation where the women make the meals for the man and, like, send him off to work the next day. And I always get on to my dad. I'm like, why do you make her make your meals? You can cook. Like, you're actually a good cook, so why make your own stuff? And he's like, grumble, grumble, grumble. And I'm like, no. I'm like, no, heteronormative gender roles. And so I feel her when she's like, why can't he make his own stuff himself? Figure it out. It's only 2 days. And then they're like, oh, your boyfriend is from Osaka, so he has a Kansai Ben accent. And they make a point of saying that Usahara has one too. And so they almost seem like they want the blonde girl to, like, hook up with him. They're like, oh, Usahara, you could date him. And they're like, well, Usahara isn't a bad person, but he's kind of a good for nothing. And I wonder if Uramichi could have heard that. I wonder if Uramichi could hear what they were saying. Usahara claims he can't, but Ikateru and Kuma could hear them. I feel bad for Usahara, because, yeah, he does seem kind of like a good for nothing, but he's trying. He means well. He's just kind of, doesn't have it easy. I love that instantly Kuma had gravitated towards Ikateru and, like, went over to hang out with him. And, of course, Ikateru's not going to say anything. But then Usahara's like, why are we all together why are we all crowded like this? And meanwhile, I feel like Kuma, he wanted the excuse to be next to Ikateru, and he's like, well, we just did what the women did, and we're all hanging out together and following along. What's wrong with that? He just wanted to be in that moment with Ikateru being as close as he could. Also, want to point out, the hot spring pool kind of looks like a dick. A little bit, maybe. Am I the only one seeing that? So then this moment happens where it says Yasuko Oide, matching look of love in Naniwa. This is like the song she's like drunkenly karaokeing to and sobbing while she's singing it was her own idol song that flopped. Like, that is cruel. Like, that is some self-deprecation when you pick your own song that flopped. It's like, and the director, of course, like, gets chummy with her and sings as well. And they're like, it was her stage name when she was an enka singer. She released this song, her first original one, after preparing thoroughly. But it ended up flopping. It didn't sell much. I feel like Uramichi, like him being the one to say this, I think is pretty important because Uramichi's making note of how she tried to, like, she prepared and did something all on her own and was proud of it, and then it failed. And so it kind of, like, led to her decline as a pop singer. It's really sad, and I feel like Uramichi kind of maybe relates to her a little bit. Then, okay, so honestly, like, Uramichi and Usahara, they're kind of both disasters, but I guess it's kind of like a ship where they're each other's disasters, right? And maybe Usahara and Uramichi can help make each other's lives better, or it'll be just a big disaster for hilarious, you know, shenanigans. We'll see. But this episode sold me on the Kumao and Ikateru relationship so hardcore because of this moment where the one guy, one of the producers, comes up and he's trying to kind of force Ikateru to drink. And instantly, you can see how sad Ikateru is. He's just like, oh, I don't really drink. I don't want to do this. Like, he instantly does not want to drink. Like, you can see how sad, like, a puppy dog he is when he pours his beer. He's like, oh, I don't drink much. And so then like, Kumao goes, look over there. Kumao does, like, a UFO. And they all look, and he basically takes the beer, chugs it down, and then just swaps him out of the way, like, moves him over gently, and then says, do you want to drink sake instead, Furude-san? Like, he's like, let's drink instead. And meanwhile, Ikateru's like, what just happened? Like, Kumao literally, because Ikateru doesn't really know how to stand up for himself, and he's kind of sheltered, Kumao just literally swapped places with him, took the burden of being the drinking buddy, and saved Ikateru from being in a situation that he wasn't comfortable with. I'm like, yes, please. Yes, please, to this relationship. I freaking love it. It's so good. So, yeah. So then Tadano opens up to Uramichi, being like, you know, you must think I'm annoying. And he's like, you shouldn't have to force yourself to have fun. He's like, this is why. And she basically is like, I've been noticing at the beginning of the party, you're forcing yourself to pretend to have fun. He's like, that's why you become like that as a reaction. And she's like, I can't handle it unless I go all out. And I know people like her, right? I've met people that they do this self-destructive behavior. And you're like, but why are you doing that? And they're like, oh, well, I feel like I need to be fun, or I need to be the life of the party, or I need to do this to stand out, or I need to do this to keep my friends. I need to be this over the top all the time. Otherwise, I won't get people to stay with me in my life. And it's like, oh no, that's not the case. But like, it's a very relatable kind of trauma response in that moment. And I was like, oh damn, girl, like the existential crises. Then we have Usahara, which I kind of like. You can kind of see when he has his hair clipped back, you can see his roots through it and everything. And Usahara's like, I'm starting to have fun. And Uramichi's like, you're not helping matters. You're not helping matters at all. And then the bowl cut's like, oh, you should have more fun, and then takes him away. Oh, no. Uramichi's like, he can handle himself. He'll be fine. But he comes back with even more kisses. And then the girls realize Capellini-chan has full makeup on at all times. He's very feminine. So I guess the girls think that he's gay, and they're like, let's be friends with him. And invite him over because he's probably, you know, gonna just hang out with us and it'll be all cool, which is exactly what happens. So I don't want to stereotype because, you know, I know heterosexual men that wear makeup, but maybe they realize that he's gay. And what does Uramichi think about that? I don't know. I really love that Kumao pulls a Lucille Bluth and drinks the one guy Furude under the table just to save Ikateru, and he's not even phased. I'm like, damn, Kumao is like unshakable when he's trying to protect his boyfriend. It is amazing. Like, oh, he probably got tired. And then poor Usahara comes back with all the kisses on him. And he's like, well, don't drink until you pass out. It'll be a pain if you do. And he's like, oh, I'll be fine. I know my limits. And then 30 minutes later, it's like he had like 2 sips and he's gone. And so then the moment that Uramichi like says to Usahara, he's like, I've been wondering about this, but what kind of things are funny to you? I felt like that was such a Bianca Del Rio to Trinity K. Bonet, where it's like, wow, or Trinity, Oh, I guess it was Trinity K1A, yeah. Where he's like, what do you do successfully? Quickly. Like, asking that question to him. Because Uramichi seems genuinely concerned that Usahara is just kind of like going along with whatever he thinks other people will find funny. He's like, why are you wearing that damn unbecoming strawberry clip in your hair? Do you think it's funny? And he's like, no, my ex-girlfriend left it in my apartment. So maybe Capellini thinks that Usahara is gay because he's wearing the strawberry clip, but that's not apparent. And Uramichi's like, he was like, it was convenient. And he's like, this is why you're not popular. And Kumao's like, yeah, you probably shouldn't be wearing the clip just because it's your ex-girlfriend's. Like, think about it first. But then we have Ikateru, who like heard the schlong joke and like nearly passed out, which is hilarious. So yeah, so then they decide to play ping pong. That moment was amazing, where they split up into two groups. I thought that was hilarious. And we'll get to that here in a hot second. But so Capellini is playing with the girls, having a great old time, just hanging out with them. And then her phone rings, and I wanted to see what her phone looked like. Okay, so the one guy with dark hair is her boyfriend of the two. Of the two comedians, her boyfriend is the one with the black hair. Okay. And her picture is basically of her snapping a picture of him while he's brushing his teeth, which is interesting. So Chuda Sugoi is her boyfriend. The fact that she has just his full name in there, Chuda Sugoi. He's like, oh, is that your comedian boyfriend? And she's like, yeah. And he's just mad because she's mad because he found a stink bug and is complaining about it. And she's like, I want a man that's not afraid of ladybugs or stink bugs. Mm-hmm. So Chuda Sugoi. Which, she doesn't want to be with Usahara either because he's afraid of stink bugs as well. She wants a manly man, clearly. So then they do the two teams, which it turns out it's like literally the two partners against each other's partner. So I like that you had Usahara and Ikateru on a team together, and they're both kind of like the laid back ones in the potential shipping relationships. And then you have Uramichi and Kumao, who are like hyper competitive, and it's like, oh no. And they actually did okay because Ikateru's like secret ping pong skills awaken, right? Hilarious. That whole game was wonderful. I loved it. But again, what cements the ship for me was Kumao teaching Ikateru how to play and being like, here's what you do. I'll show you. I'll teach you. Like, that's such like a flirty, cutesy move. And I'm like, so yeah, Kumao and Ikateru sold me on their ship today. And Uramichi and Usahara are slowly, they're slowly getting me on their ship as well. Right? So she's like, I don't like it when a guy can't even get rid of a bug. It'd be cooler if he could. And then I love that Capellini just instantly throws the bug out and is like, more than men or women, Oni are the strongest. Freaking love it! Hilarious! Their design is insane. I love it. So, Uramichi's team and Kumatani ended up getting 17, and Ikateru and Usahara got 14. So it was a close game. So yeah, and they're like, we're sweating, so let's go soak in the hot spring. And this time when they go, the stink bug and everything keeps Usahara. I like that Usahara jumps behind Uramichi. He's like, it's creepy, and Uramichi's like, why are you hiding behind me? It's a very shippable moment. I like it a lot. And then I like when he's like, we'll leave it alone. It'll just go somewhere else eventually. That's a very Uramichi response where Usahara's like, aren't you going to get rid of the bug? And Usahara's like, and Uramichi's like, it's going to go away eventually. Just wait and it'll be gone soon. But I love Usahara saying, is it really okay? Without the towel, everyone will see my whole hog. And the best part is that the nickname, what whole hog translates to, has the word chin in it. So Ikateru freaks out again. I'm just like, I cannot. Uramichi surprisingly deals with Usahara quite a bit, and I love that Uramichi is like, you finally made someone laugh, which is Ikateru with the dick joke. And Kumao seems flustered that Usahara was able to make him laugh. Oh my god. Would I think that Kuma is yandere for Ikateru? He'd probably stab a bitch for him. I think he would. I think he would. But yeah, so then they go back to the horseshoe shaped. I guess it isn't a penis, but it's a very odd. It literally looks like a penis jetting from the rocks. Yeah, there's 2 rocks and it's a penis jetting from the rocks. Oh my god, it really is. And they all split up this time. And then I love that Uramichi says the Richard Feynman joke just to make Ikateru laugh, and Kumao is just like having none of it. And the stink bug's still there. Oh my god. What a funny episode. This episode was hilarious. And I love that the ships are becoming more and more clear. We have Usahara and Uramichi. We have Kumao and Ikateru. I mean, you can still ship them either way, but no. No, the shipping is becoming clearer to me now. I'm seeing the vision. So, I'm really excited to hear your comments down below. I hope you all enjoyed this reaction and discussion. We're halfway through the series now. So, now we just have episodes 7 through 13 left. In any case, I hope you all have a wonderful week. Please stay safe, take care, and yeah, I'll be back very soon with more of life lessons with Uramichi Oniisan.